Hi, in this video I will try and change your whole approach to decision making by showing that there is one very important factor that you are neglecting far too much. And so, are you someone who likes to think that they think things through? Like, do you like to think that you are a thoughtful person, that you make smart decisions, and then you take into consideration everything? So, like, imagine this is your brain. So this is a this is the worst brain that has ever been drawn, but that doesn't matter. Like, imagine this is your brain, and so when you make decisions, you like to think that you're taking everything under considerations. So you look at things from this direction and that direction and that direction. And so, like, if you're smart, you like to take every factor into account of your decision, because fundamentally, you are trying to predict the outcome of each option of the decision so that you can choose, right? So, like, if we caricature roughly, you're trying to take into consideration several different parameters and factors, and for each of them, you're trying to assess, will this go this way or will this go that way? Like, imagine this is time, and let's say this is your resources, such as money, or actually time in itself. So imagine this is time after your decisions. So the further away you go from zero, the more you are getting into the consequences and the second order consequences of your decision. So for each choice, you might have consequences for each parameter that go one way or the other. So things might get better or they might get worse. So imagine, like, you make a choice and you're trying to think, okay, so in the long run, will I have more money than I used to or less money than I used to? Will I have more free time than I used to or less? Will I have, more happiness or less? That's actually, it's a very difficult part. And so you're trying to do this for every single thing, and this is sort of keeping you safe, right? So this is you trying to be smart about it. Like, you don't want to forget about something that is important, and you're trying to get safe. And so you want to make sure that your decisions will go in the right directions. And you enter into dilemmas when something will go a positive way. Some factor will go a positive way if you make that choice, and another thing that matters to you will go into a negative way. And so what I want to tell you in this video is that if you're the kind of person who does that, if you're the kind of person who wants to take everything under consideration, I'm really willing to bet that there's one very important factor that you're not taking into consideration. And that factor is self-respect. So before every decision, you should think about this question on top of the other ones that you might want to ask yourself. If I do this, will I end up with more self-respect than at the beginning, or with less? Because that can very much change whether you're making the right choice or not. That's something that most people are neglecting far too much. So I would argue that the way a decision affects your self-respect matters oftentimes a lot more than some of the material consequences of your decisions. And why is that? It's because, first of all, this very much affects your inner experience of life. So how well you think of yourself, it's an important piece to take into consideration. That's not a nice to have. Like, thinking well of yourself, it matters a lot. It's a necessity. But this is where we need to be very careful, because there's actually a dark version of this that people usually do, but often unconsciously, which is not what I'm talking about. So a lot of people what they do with their decisions, they try to protect their ego. And so they want to think of themselves as smart, so they don't want to challenge themselves, or they don't want to find out that they're, ugly or unlovable. So let's say they don't ask out any person that they might care about, but who might reject them. So they are afraid of failure because they're afraid of what it means for their self-image. They're afraid of failure because they think that makes them a failure, and they think it will make them think less of yourself. But that's not the kind of thing that I'm talking about. So that would be ego. That would be like, how do I compare with others? Am I smart? Am I talented? Am I, handsome or pretty? Like things like that. And those things, well, you should not be afraid of finding out where you stand, but you should actually pursue getting better, usually. So you should not be afraid. But that's not the kind of self-respect that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the self-respect that comes from showing courage, or from having the right, like having moral values and standing up for them, right? And so this is why it matters. So how you think about yourself, it really affects your inner experience, first of all. So you can have very different you can have very different material circumstances and feel the same way, feel the same kind of level of happiness. And conversely, you can have the same material circumstances and feel very differently about yourself and your whole life, and this very much affects your happiness. So this is why some people, you think they have it all, but they feel terrible. And one of those things can be that they don't feel right, like they don't feel proud of themselves. And so, for instance, let's say you've always played it safe in your life, like you've always done what your parents were telling you. You've always had the safe job. You've always tried to, please your boss. And so you have arrived at a pretty good level of material stability and of material success. Like you have a good job, except you don't really feel good about it. First of all, because you don't like your job that much, but also you're not proud of what the job stands for, or most of all, you are not proud of the fact that you are there, because you're only there because you never dared to do anything different. You were too cowardly to try and think for and ask your boss for something, or to quit your job and go to another one. So that affects how you think about yourself, right? And that affects how you feel about your life. Sometimes, life can punch you in the teeth, but if you've shown courage and guts, you can be fine with that, right? And so a lot of the time, so let's take a dating example. If you've tried to ask out the person who you really like, even if it ends in a devastating rejection, you should be proud of yourself, because at least you tried. You've given yourself a shot at happiness. So that would be courage. And the same way with moral values. Like you will feel considerably better about yourself if you do the right thing according to your values. Like if you live in accordance to your values, you will feel proud of yourself, but hopefully not self-righteous, but you will feel considerably happier than if you feel ashamed. Like if your material circumstances, if your outcomes have been wonderful, except you achieve them by doing stuff that you're really not comfortable with on a moral standpoint, on the moral aspect of it, then you won't feel good in your life, period. You won't like your life. You will feel terrible. So your actual inner experience of life depends a lot more on your self-respect than it does on your material circumstances most of the time. And the second reason that it really, really, really does matter what you do is that every choice you make that affects your self-respect, for better or for worse, in some kind of parameter, it affects your further decisions. So what that means, it also affects even the material outcomes of your further decisions, because you won't make the same choices. So let's say you make a brave choice. Well, and you end up like either it works and then that's great, or it doesn't work, but you took the beating and you're fine. So what that means is that you will feel like the world is your oysters. Is your oyster. So you will see a lot of opportunities around, things that you might try, even if you're uncertain, even if you're kind of afraid, you will know that that fear kind of is an excitement as well. So you will see the world as a place where you can try things, and some of them will turn into real opportunities. And so this will affect your choices down the line. And so if you do something brave, you think of yourself as brave. And so that means that decisions that require courage, they are accessible to you. And so this will lead you to take more and more. This will lead you to be able to make the brave choice if required. Whereas if you do something cowardly and you are sort of ashamed of it, and you protect yourself, but you are ashamed of it, essentially, well, then you will think of yourself as a coward. And so that also has consequences into how you see the world. So you will see the world as being full of threats rather than opportunities, not just because, like, it's not just a matter of correlation. Like, sure, if you've done a cowardly thing, that is probably because you are a bit cowardly to begin with, and so you tend to see threats rather than opportunities. But the more you make the cowardly choice, the more you think of yourself as a coward, and the more you think you don't even want to consider opportunities, because even if you didn't see them as threats, you would think like, no, but I can't do this. I'm not that kind of person. I don't make the brave choice. I won't have the guts to even try that, so it's not even worth considering. And the same thing about the moral values. Like, it's well known that at some point, the less you think of yourself morally, the more it impacts your choice, because you're already ashamed, and at some point you sort of build an identity around it. So you think of yourself as a terrible person, which means that you are more likely to think, oh, but I've already done this and that terrible thing, so I can do other things like that. And this will not end well, and you won't feel good. But what that means, essentially, so if we sum up, the way your decisions affect your self-matters, affects your self-respect matters a whole lot, because it affects how you enjoy your life. That's the importance of self-respect. Like, it completely changes your inner experience of life. But it also changes the trajectory of your life, because it affects your further choices. So even if you only cared about the material consequences of your choices, well, then you should still care about self-respect, because it will change your further decisions. And guess what? Even from a purely material standpoint, you should be able to make brave choices, because that's actually how you get better outcomes. The world tends to treat you better when you are able to see opportunities. And the problem is, to even see opportunities, you must think that you have the ability to seize that opportunity, and that requires courage. And so that means that you will get better material consequences if you see courage. If you think about yourself as a coward, then your world will only shrink. There will be only threats, no opportunities. So when you make a decision to act either bravely or cowardly, please know that the consequences will not just be the material consequences of that decision, it will also impact your further decisions down the line and their consequences. So, of course, I'm not saying that the braver decision is always the better one. Sometimes it would just be dumb. And I'm not a moral absolutist saying that you should always do this or that. What I am saying is this: take this into consideration when you're making your decisions, because it matters a whole lot. I promise you that you will enjoy your life more with some self-respect, and that your life will also treat you better.